Please join me in welcoming back A.J. Wright.
Recent speaker at Notre Dame.
I presented at Notre Dame Vision this morning, the Liturgical Music Minister Conference. Okay, so today we're going to talk about the Psalms a little bit. And the ways, did you find it?
Yeah.
Can you email it to me? Okay, thanks. Father Phil found this fantastic thing that one of our professors created that I want to share with you guys, but in a couple minutes. First things first, I'm hoping that you guys had a great lunch and that you have some coffee to be ready for this afternoon, but I'd like to finish what we started this morning, and the only thing we didn't get to was singing the rest of our Mass ordinaries. So why don't we stand up? Let's stand up and do some singing. Now, I want to do this credo because, like Rebecca said, almost nobody sings the credo. This credo 3 is cool because it's like the Gloria from the Missa De Angelis, right? It's a similar formula. So it should be easy enough to read. If you have your sheets, great. Otherwise, I'll scroll along with you here. And let's keep in mind what Adam was talking about earlier too, with our voices sort of proclaiming what's inherently in this text. Always keep in mind also the important syllables of words, like I believe in one God, and also keeping the text moving. Okay? I believe in one. I believe. Let's try it here. It's our G. Ready?
I believe in one God, the Father Almighty, maker of heaven and earth, of all things visible and invisible. I believe in one Lord Jesus Christ, the only begotten Son of God, born of the Father, before all ages, God from God, light from light, true God from true God, begotten, not made, consubstantial with the Father, through him all things were made, for our sin and for our salvation. He came down from heaven, and by the Holy Spirit was incarnate of the Virgin Mary, and became man. For our sake he was crucified under Pontius Pilate. He suffered death and was buried, and rose again on the third day, in accordance with the Scriptures. He ascended into heaven, and is seated at the right hand of the Father. He will come again in glory, to judge the living and the dead, and his kingdom will have no end. I believe in the Holy Spirit, the Lord, the giver of life, who proceeds from the Father and the Son, who
a seat. So much fun, right? Yeah. Okay. So just to reiterate on what we talked about this morning a little bit, and I want to come back to this, that of what Pope Francis said in his address to sacred musicians. The true solemnity of liturgical worship depends less on a more ornate form of singing and a more magnificent ceremonial than on its worthy and religious celebration. That's, again, from Sacrosanctum Concilium, number 11. Now, that would take some unpacking, I think, to really figure out what we want to, how we want to define worthy and religious celebration. But we're going to suspend that for a little bit because the real reason for reading this quote is that I think this sense that Francis pulls out of it is really great to inform the type of posture that is most helpful for us on a week-long retreat like this one. It is therefore, firstly, a matter of intense participation in the mystery of God, in the theophany that occurs in each Eucharistic celebration, in which the Lord manifests himself in the midst of his people, called to participate in a true way in the salvation enacted by Christ's death and resurrection. Active and conscious participation consists, therefore, in knowing how to enter more profoundly into this mystery, in knowing how to contemplate, adore, and welcome it, grasping its sense, thanks in particular to religious silence and to the musicality of the language with which the Lord speaks to us. Now, let's take a moment to notice what he doesn't say there. Active participation. I'm not saying this, they are not unequivocally these things, but he does not say active participation is everybody singing the Gloria together. Everybody singing the entrance hymn, everyone singing the hymn at the offertory. Now, these are all manifestations of active participation. But I think what he's getting at is something that can really inform us in our roles as music directors, and something that we can concretely take back to our parishes. It's something that can give us hope also. You know, we all have our gripes about our congregations and how difficult it is to get the pastor to agree to do anything, how hard it is to get the congregation. We talked about some of this stuff earlier. If I want to have the congregation chant the Gloria, I got to convince the priest, I got to convince the cantors, I need to train the cantors well, I need to study those chants myself, I need to perform them well. And then there's the whole issue of the congregation and what kind of response am I going to get from the congregation? These people are going to hate me if I do this. This music's not going to be good. You know, any number of things that we're all asking each other or asking ourselves in our roles. But this sense of active participation, and I think the hope that it can convey for our vocations as directors of music is fantastic. And I'm just going to read it again. So active participation. Firstly, a matter of intense participation in the mystery of God, the mystery of God, and the theophany that occurs in each Eucharistic celebration, in which the Lord manifests himself in the midst of his people, called to participate in a true way in the salvation enacted by Christ's death and resurrection. Active and conscious participation consists, therefore, in knowing how to enter profoundly into this mystery, in knowing how to contemplate, adore, and welcome it, in grasping its sense, thanks in particular to religious silence and to the musicality of the language with which the Lord speaks to us. So after hearing that, what can we take away from that as, what is our real role then if we are to foster active and conscious participation? It's not necessarily to just get people singing at every moment. Again, this is a great way to manifest it physically, to get people singing all the time. But I think what Francis is saying here is that it's really calling for a transformation of our own hearts and our own idea of who we are as music directors. Are we really entering profoundly into the mystery when we're at Mass? Like when we're playing the Gloria, when we're singing the Gloria, when we're directing a choir for the Gloria. Is there a real encounter happening within us, or are we just doing it by rote? You know?
What is religious
I think he's referring to the idea that in moments of silence, well, there's a whole theology of the idea of religious silence, but music can really only arise out of silence, right? Without silence, there is no purpose in music, in a sense.
Just a denotation.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
As opposed to just sitting there waiting for the next thing to happen.
right.
Actually be reflecting on what you've just heard.
Yeah, religious silence is in dialogue with this posture, I think, of being present in the action. So if we are truly present in the Gloria and we're providing this environment where we're cultivating active and conscious participation in our congregations, what does that mean after? What does it mean when the priest finishes his homily and there's a couple moments there for everybody to meditate and contemplate the mystery? It's not time to be passed. And I also think the same thing about part of our discussion earlier. We were talking about getting through things. Because, and come on, we all understand the sense of like, we're here week after week doing this thing. Yeah, I want to get through it too. But this week in particular gives us an opportunity to sort of refresh where our true values are as liturgical music ministers. And so I want to keep referring back to this today, knowing how ourselves, if we can look at this as a reflection, how do we enter more profoundly into the mystery of the Eucharist? How do we learn and know, like how can we figure out how to contemplate, adore, and welcome this mystery and grasp its sense? And what is there inside of religious silence that can inform us as to the, what is there in religious silence that can add to the dialogue that we create with our own music? So how can religious silence and our action as music ministers be in dialogue and mutually inform each other? All right, let's sing some more. Holy, holy. Let's stand. Okay, we're going English here. We'll do the Missa de Angelus in Latin, but we're going to go back to back. Holy, we'll say. Ready?
Holy, holy, holy Lord God of hosts, heaven and earth are full of your glory. Hosanna in the highest. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Hosanna in the highest.
Does anyone feel like they want to try singing this by themselves? Big risk. Go for it.
Holy, holy, holy Lord God of hosts.
All right, let's stop there. Anyone else? Okay. Not a trick question. I'm not setting you up for some big embarrassment. Can we try the first phrase like this?
Holy, holy, holy Lord God of hosts.
So starting off soft. Ready?
Holy, holy, holy Lord God of
Keep going.
hosts, heaven and earth are full of your glory.
Okay, let's pause. Why is the note on earth long? What kind of sense can we get from that? Any thoughts? Could be. Is there the sense perhaps that the earth is stagnant, it doesn't move? While we're here on earth, we're not making a movement toward, I don't know. There's all kinds of things we can say, but for the sake of this exercise, can we say,
Heaven and earth are full of your glory.
make the earth point to full of your glory by crescendoing through the beginning of the phrase.
Heaven,
Ready?
Heaven and earth are full of your glory.
Big.
Hosanna in the highest. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Hosanna in the highest.
huge difference. Couple little details there. Sanctus. Sanctus. Ready?
Sanctus, 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 Dominus Deus Sabaoth, pleni sugeri et terra, gloria tua, Hosanna in excelsis, benedictus qui venict in nomine Domini, Hosanna in excelsis.
Great, you guys can have a seat.
You broke it, you bought it. When we're singing with this kind of notation, are we to assume that all the black notes are supposed to be about the same length?
I was just gonna say.
Because sometimes that can get very robotic and it gets hard to listen to and hard to sing.
Okay, I'm gonna give a subjective answer to that question, because we could spend a lot of time on it. But here's the deal: if you speak the text, let's look at this other one because I think it's an easier example to relate with. So there's some sense in which the most important, if chant is like an amplified speech, then the important elements in giving a speech are still the important elements in chanting. Okay? So the important syllables need to be properly emphasized. The unimportant syllables need to be properly unemphasized. You know, and which is particularly tricky. Like think about the what's the one example? Well, this is a great example. Holy, holy, right? How do we say holy? The first syllable is the important one, right?
Holy, holy, holy Lord God of hosts.
So no, the black notes are not the same, but it does require, if we're going to use this type of notation, it requires a further investment from the music director. Just as it does if you're playing a contemporary 4-part mass. Like, you're not going to show up to mass not having looked at it. Maybe some of us will, but hopefully you'll spend a couple minutes looking at it. You'll figure out where the phrases are. You'll figure out where it's important to, if you're playing the organ, where do I need to leave a little space for the congregation to breathe so that they know where to breathe? We're going to make all these decisions, right? The same thing needs to happen with this type of music. And the same thing can happen with this type of music, and it presents an additional opportunity. So yeah, the short answer is no. They shouldn't all be the same. But the long answer is that we could talk about it for a long time, I think.
I just know when we used to do this with my choir, the choir would sing the verses of the song, and I would have them read them before we sang them.
Yeah.
And listen to how they, and by doing that, you brought us out of the nether world became, you brought us out of the nether world.
Yeah, that's a great way to do it, is to read them, I think. So we're going to move on to talking about the Psalms a little bit, and we'll come back to singing Agnus Dei in a couple minutes. Alrighty. So, Carolyn gave me this talk, and the title that she proposed was Singing the Psalms in the Eucharist. And I do want to mostly talk about that, but I would like to expand it a little bit to say singing the Psalms in liturgy. So that means talking about the Psalms in Mass while celebrating the Eucharist, but also within the context of the Liturgy of the Hours. So this is like coming at you 100 miles an hour. Stop me if you want to figure out what I said, if you need to clarify something. But I want to give ourselves the opportunity to be presented with as much as possible in this short time we have together. So I'm going to start with Sing to the Lord a little bit. This is paragraph 92, about antiphons and psalms. The psalms are poems of praise that are meant, whenever possible, to be sung. The Psalter is the basic songbook of the liturgy. Tertullian witnesses this when he says that in the assemblies of the Christians, quote, the scriptures are read, the psalms are sung, sermons are preached, end quote. Psalms have a prominent place in every office of the Liturgy of the Hours. The responsorial psalm in the Liturgy of the Word of the Mass and of other rites, quote, holds great liturgical and pastoral importance because it fosters meditation on the Word of God. The entrance and communion chants with their psalm verses serve to accompany the two most important processions of the Mass. The entrance procession, by which the Mass begins, and the communion procession, by which the faithful approach the altar to receive Holy Communion. Participation in song on the part of the assembly is commended during both of these important processions as the people of God gather at the beginning of Mass and as the faithful approach the holy altar to receive the body and blood of the Lord. All right, so the Liturgy of the Hours. Let's talk about that a little bit. So Liturgy of the Hours, different than Mass, right? Liturgy of the Hours is, in its most basic definition, it's a sequenced set of hours that are prayed throughout the day. They all have similar forms. No Eucharist is celebrated at the Liturgy of the Hours. But again, this is a liturgy, so there are similar theological elements with regard to the divine office and the Mass. The Liturgy of the Hours is composed of psalms, hymns, scriptural, patristic, and hagiographical readings and prayers. It's the public liturgical prayer of the Church, destined by her for the sanctification of the specific parts of the day. What's the background of praying the Liturgy of the Hours? Without frequent and what's like the theological underpinning, I think is a better way to frame this next paragraph. Without frequent and fervent prayer, the life of the Christian soon can easily become directionless and empty. In the absence of communal prayer, relying solely on private devotion, our witness becomes individualistic and ultimately devoid of any sense of a church and ecclesiology. The development of the Liturgy of the Hours through the ages was predicated on the necessity for Christians to gather as often as possible, not only to sanctify the day through the celebration of various hours, but to strengthen the community's capacity and resolve to give witness to Christ as the gathered faithful. So, like all liturgical celebrations, the Liturgy of the Hours is not a private act. It's a public sign of the Church, and it belongs to the whole Church and has impact on all its members. That's from the general instruction on the Liturgy of the Hours. The distribution of the office throughout the day is the way that the Church has responded to Christ's commandment to pray always in Luke chapter 18, verse 1. Also, piggybacking on the words of the psalmist in 119 and 119, 7 times a day I pray to you. The 2 moments of the rising and setting of the sun were the first chosen for prayers. So the rising of the sun is called lauds, or morning prayer. And at the setting of the sun, vespers, or evening prayer. The divisions formerly marking the day served to determine the minor hours of terce, sext, and none, at the 3rd, 6th, and 9th hour, respectively. To imitate Christ's example and to follow his teachings, there was established a night office, which is called matins. And it's divided into several nocturnes, a remnant of the ancient divisions of the night. Very early in the church, the memory of a moment of the Passion was linked with each of these hours. A little bit of history. The prayer of the first Christians had its roots in Jewish prayer. From the first centuries, there were 3 kinds of prayer: morning and evening prayers, day prayers, and night prayers. Only the first 2 were practiced regularly by the Christian community. After Constantine recognized the church's place in society in the year 313, the church organized the prayer by establishing the times of celebration and determining the formulas to be used. 2 tendencies were brought to bear on this. The first came from cathedral or parish communities, and the other from monastic communities. And these 2 different types of communities sort of had their own trajectories in the ways that they developed the Liturgy of the Hours. All right, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit here. And we're going to go back to singing. So, Agnus Dei. Let's start with this one from the Missa di Angelis. And sorry for jumping around here, but I really do want to get this experience of singing these ordinary parts together. Let's stand up. We say F, Fa. Ready?
Agnus Dei, quis tollis peccata mundi, miserere nobis. Agnus Dei, quis tollis peccata mundi, miserere nobis. Agnus Dei, quis tollis peccata mundi, dona nobis pacem.
All right, great. Let's have a seat. Okay, so there's been a lot of, this is a very old tradition, the Liturgy of the Hours, and there's been a lot of reform on this throughout the history of the church. So I'm skipping a lot of the details of this history, but I'm kind of picking up around where we are at the time of the Second Vatican Council. Building on the encyclical Mediator Dei of Pius XII and on the Constitution on the Sacred Liturgy, the general instruction on the Liturgy of the Hours teaches that all Christian prayer is the prolongation of Christ's prayer, the principal characteristics of which are praise and intercession. The Eucharist, the other sacraments, and the divine office are simply various modes whereby the Church, as spirit-filled body of the risen Lord, is united with its head in his once great act of glorifying the Father and pleading with him for the needs of mankind. While the office is a preparation for the Eucharist as well as an extension of it, it also renders present in its own way the same reality which lies at the heart of the Eucharist, the sacrifice of Christ. Understood as a continuation of Christ's priestly work in the Church, the celebration of the hours is no longer considered a form of liturgy belonging primarily to those in holy orders or solemn vows. It is recommended that all faithful, on the basis of their baptismal union with Christ, participate in the Liturgy of the Hours. This is a really important development and presumes a slight development in ecclesiology, to have this be an option really for all of the faithful. Let's talk about its structure. So we're still in Liturgy of the Hours. The structure, with a few notable exceptions, is the same. There's an opening verse. So like at the first office of the day, for example, we have, Lord, open my lips, and my mouth shall proclaim your praise. And then subsequent ones begin with something like, oh God, come to my aid. Lord, hasten to help me, or God, come to my assistance. Some of us know. Okay, so opening verse, a hymn, psalms with associated antiphons usually, a reading, and a concluding prayer. So let's talk about the two main hours, Lauds and Vespers. Lauds includes a morning psalm, an Old Testament canticle, and a psalm of praise. At Vespers, there are two psalms followed by a canticle from the epistles or the book of Revelation. Although Old Testament canticles always found a place in the divine office, the use of canticles drawn from the epistles and the book of Revelation is an innovation. Psalmody at the middle hour usually consists of 3 sections of Psalm 118, or 3 gradual psalms. The office of readings also includes 3 psalms. All right, so the antiphons. The antiphons help to illustrate the literary character of the psalm, turn the psalm into a personal prayer, and place in better light a phrase worthy of attention which may otherwise be missed. Antiphons give special color to the psalms in differing circumstances, and while excluding arbitrary accommodations, help considerably in the typological and festive interpreting of the psalm, and can make more attractive and varied the recitation of the psalm. Okay, let's skip ahead a little again.
JJ, I'm sorry, what document, what's your source here?
I'm taking a lot from the General Instruction of the Liturgy of the Hours, but also the Catholic Encyclopedia,
Okay, great.
the new one. Okay, you know what? Let's skip that also, and we're gonna go and dig into these psalms a little bit. All right, who knows what the psalm tones are? Okay, great. So, and have people sung the psalm tones sometime?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. So we're going to do a little review of these. There's 8 tones, 8 psalm tones. And plus there's one called the tonus peregrinus, which is the 9th tone. So there's really 9 psalm tones. And the way the psalm tones have functioned throughout history is that we have an antiphon. These particular psalm tones are for antiphons of Vespers. But like at Mass, for example, if we're gonna sing the introit, if we're gonna sing the communio, the way it would work is that we do an antiphon, and then in between the antiphon, we sing the verses of the psalm using a formula. Okay, so there's a really great example actually of ways that you can do this very simply, written by Adam, called Simple English Propers, and it's basically, it is the ancient prayer of the liturgy. It's the antiphons in the psalms set to Gregorian chant, things that resemble Gregorian chant melodies. It's fair, I think. And it's a really easy way to sort of get a taste of what it's actually like without having to dig in really deeply to reading Gregorian chant and things like that if you're interested. But for now, we're going to check these out a little bit. So the first tone. Every psalm tone has an intonation So a little melody that starts the chant, the tenor and the flex. So if we have a comma in our psalm verse, we would use this flex ending. The flex formula there. The tenor is the reciting note. So in between accent marks, in between punctuation, the note that we stay on for most of the psalm singing is called the tenor. Okay, next we have the mediant, which would be the end of the first half of a particular psalm verse. After the mediant, we go back to the tenor. I think is the tenor always the same for both halves? We'll see. We'll find out.
Except for paragraph.
Yeah, except for peregrinus, right. And then we have our endings. And in the Liber Usualis, from which this is taken, this is an example. When you see your antiphon, it's going to indicate which particular ending you're supposed to use. But for right now, we don't need to get into that too much. So each tone has distinctive elements. The formula for each tone has a distinctive element for how it corresponds to the accents in the psalm. So in this first tone, the mediant has 2 accents. So that means if you're looking at the psalm verse, you find the last 2 accents of the first half of the verse, and fit it in to this little da 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 dum, ba da da dum. Okay. And then this ending in particular has 1 accent with 2 preparatory syllables. So if we look at this top one, the ending, the D ending, da 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 dum, accent. Sorry. Da da dum, da da dum, ba 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 bum. And it's helpful to actually look at an example here. All right. So Psalm 109, Dixit Dominus. We can see exactly what we're dealing with here. And then we're going to give this a shot. So if we look at the first verse, it's got it spelled out for us.
Dixit Dominus Domino meo, sede ad dextris.
Am I doing that right?
Sede ad dextris meis.
Okay, depending on the ending. So now if we look down at verse 2, in every verse, we get bolded syllables that will help us determine where the notes go within the formula. So remember, we have for tone 1 a mediant of 2 accents. So the first half of the verse gets the mediant. And then for the second half of the verse, we use the ending. So the ending, we have 1 accent with 2 preparatory notes. And the way that's indicated here is that the 2 preparatory notes are italicized, and then the accent is bolded. So,
Pedum tuorum.
Pedum tuorum. I think. Is that right? Yeah. Okay, cool. So can we all try singing Dixit Dominus with this D ending? And once we get the hang of that, we'll see if we can apply the rest of this formula to the other verses. Okay? Here we go. D Caesar. Ready?
Dixit Dominus Domino meo, sede ad dextris meis.
Okay, so let's talk about these little white notes. These are the nota excavata. And these notes are only used if we have extra syllables. So in this case, domino is a 3-syllable word. We have our accent, where it's marked right here. And because there's an extra syllable in domino, we use the nota excavata. But in meo, it's only a 2-syllable word. There's only 1 syllable that comes after the accent. And so in this case, we don't need it. Okay? So
Domino meo
is our formula for this. And then the same is true here. Now, if we had domino, just for example, as the last word,
sede a dextris domino.
okay, so if we have a three-syllable word as the last word, then the nota excavata allows us to fill in the spot with that. Okay? Let's try singing this one more time with that. D is our fa. Ready?
Dixit Dominus Domino meo, sede a dextris meis.
Very nice. All right, can we try breaking into two halves? So we'll take, so you two guys on the end of this table are on this side, and then you guys are on this side. What we're going to do is people on the right side are going to be the odd verses, and the people on your left side are going to be the even verses. Okay? And we're going to try together verses 2 and 3 before we break off. Do we have any flexes?
No.
Okay, good. All right, so it's a little tricky because you got to look at two places at once, but let's give it a shot. Here's verse 2 with everybody. After the first verse, we don't sing the incipit anymore. Okay? So we just started.
Donec ponam inimicos tuos.
Okay, let's try it nice and slow though.
Donec ponam inimicos tuos. Scabellum pedum tuorum.
Okay, very good. So,
Scabellum pedum tuorum.
everyone see that?
Scabellum pedum tuorum.
Can we just try the second half?
Scabellum. Scabellum pedum tuorum.
That's it. Whole second verse.
Donec.
Ready?
Donec ponam inimicos tuos.
Let's try that one more time. I'll sing it for you first. Okay, but follow along with the formula as I sing it.
Donec ponam inimicos tuos. Scabellum pedum tuorum.
You guys?
Donec ponam inimicos tuos, scabellum pedum tuorum.
Yeah, and that third word has 4 syllables. Inimikos. Okay?
Inimicos tuos.
All right. Let's see if we can try the third verse together. Okay? Let's see if we can read it. Here we go.
Virgam.
Virgam virtutis tuae in mitis Dominus exion, dominare in medio iniquorum tuorum.
Very good. All right, can we try again? And let's get it a little bit more fluid. It's okay to make a mistake here, right? We're all learning this together.
Virgam virtutis tuae emite Dominus exion.
Let's try it. Virgam.
Virgam virtutis tuae emite Dominus exion, dominare in medio inimicorum tuorum.
Very good. Awesome, guys. All right, can we try singing the whole song now? Or at least through the first 6 verses? So we'll split into sides. Why don't you guys face each other a little bit more, if you can, with an eye on the screen. You guys are going to be pros, though, in about 20 minutes. All right, so whose side 1 is this one? Okay. Ready?
Dixit Dominus Domino Deo,
sede ad dextris meis.
non equonem inimicos tuos, scabellum pecum tuorum.
Virgam virtutis tuae vitae Dominus ex Zion, dominare in medio inimicorum tuorum.
Tecum principium in die virtutis tuae et splendoribus sanctorum, ex utero ante Luciferum genite.
Iuravi Dominus et non penitebit eum, tuis sacerdos in aeternam secundem ordinem Melchizedek.
Dominus ad extris tuis, confregit in die vitis suae reges.
Okay, bravo, guys. That's great. So, this is something that we just sang that's been done for how long? At least 500 years? Probably much longer. Probably more like, in this actual arrangement though, 500 years. With these particular tones, 1500? Okay. All right, let's look at one more. So we'll do two of them, and then we'll set you loose. Because there's 8 of them. It would take us all day to get through them all. But the good thing is that in this particular document, they're all set to Psalm 119. So we get a sense of the text. And just a little clarification here. Okay, so this is our clef right here. Anyone know what that one means?
Fa.
Ah, great. Okay. So this is going to have a different level of pitch recitation than the last one. Tone 2 is very easy. The median only has one accent. The ending only has one accent with only one preparatory syllable. So what does that mean? Our bolded syllable on the front end is going to be right here. Our nota excavata only happens if the last word is 3 syllables or more. And our second one, our italicized syllable is going to be where we move for the first time. Okay, and then our bolded syllable is where the accent is. So in this case,
Dixit Dominus Domino meo, sede ad dextris meis.
now
Meis.
we leave out the nota excavata unless we need it for a syllable. Okay, let's just try reading it down. Same halves. So this is group 1 now.
Dixit.
Ready?
Dixit Dominus Domino meo, sede ad dextris meis.
Donec ponam inimicos tuos, scabellum pedum tuorum.
Virgam virtutis tuae mitis Dominus ex Zion, dominare in medio inimicorum tuorum. Tecum principium in die virtutis tuae splendoribus sanctorum, ex utero ante Luciferum genite.
Iuravi Dominus et non penitebit eum,
Tu es sacerdos in aeternum secundum ordinum Melchizedek.
Dominus ad dextris tuis, confregit in die ire sue reges.
Iudicavit in nationibus, in plebis ruinas, conquastavit capita in terra montorum. Et ore gira libet, propter in apud. Gloria Patri et Filio et Spiritui Sancto, sicut erat in principio et nunc et semper, et in saecula saeculorum. Amen.
Awesome, guys. All right, so I'm just pulling up another example here because I want to move on to showing you a different way of singing these psalms. Oops, sorry. Don't look. All right, so now that we know this formula, we can look at this and see something that's a little the same and a little bit different. Okay? In this case, we're not looking anymore at...
Could you make that hair bigger?
Yes.
And what's the source code, the source document?
This is called the Simple English Propers.
Ah,
Okay, and so this is
thank you. Oh, yeah.
assembled by Mr. Adam Bartlett. And Adam, since you're here, can you tell us just a 1-minute background about why you did this?
Yeah, sure. It was a initiative of the Church Music Association of America to try to put together a resource that set all the antiphons of the Mass in English in accessible settings for parishes today. So really the method that I employed here was to use a formulaic model for the antiphons so that whenever you encounter the same mode and the same genre, so like the entrance antiphon in mode 1, we employ the same mode throughout the entire year. And so there were different melodic formulas that were used for every mode in each genre. And those were, there we go.
Oh, sorry.
Were composed for this in order to accommodate the needs of the English language, which is very different from the Latin language. So that's the method that was employed here. And then the psalmody is set to these very, very simple tones that anyone can pretty much sing by paying attention to the text and its natural rhythm and inflection.
Cool. Awesome. All right, so these, though, we're going to do a little bit different than we would do a Vespers or a morning prayer antiphon psalm. In the case of Lauds and Vespers, we would only sing the antiphon at the beginning and at the end of the psalmody. In this case, though, and correct me if I'm wrong, Adam, we'll do the antiphon in between each psalm verse, right?
So responsorial, like responsorial.
It's like a responsorial psalm. And the idea would be, ideally that the congregation could eventually sing along with these antiphons. So in order to get an idea, though, of the difference between singing psalmody in the context of a mass, in the context of one of the propers, and singing psalmody as part of Vespers and morning prayer, let's give this one a try. Okay, so the Gregorian chant notation is simple enough here that I think we can all give it a read. And then once we get to the end of the antiphon, I'll scroll down so that we can see the song.
Behold.
Let's try that.
Okay.
Okay, here we go.
Behold, God is my helper, and the Lord is the upholder of my soul. Turn back all the evil against
against my enemies. Destroy them in your fidelity, O Lord, the protector of my life.
O God,
Can we try singing them together?
O God, save me by your name. By your power defend my cause. O God, hear my prayer. Give ear to the words of my mouth. Behold, God is my helper, and the Lord is the upholder of my soul. Turn back all the evil against my enemies. Destroy them in your fidelity, O Lord, the protector of my life.
Very nice. All right, cool.
I have a question.
Yeah.
The line, we do hold out Lord longer than the other, like in the first line there. We do hold out Lord a little longer?
Yes. That's called a horizontal epizema, and it just adds a little bit of sustain to that particular note.
What,
Sorry?
not as much as a dot, but more than a regular one?
Yeah.
Okay. Those have always confused me, so.
Just ignore them. Yeah, we tend to exaggerate them. I think everything that you need is in text. So if you said, behold, God is my helper, and the Lord is the upholder of my soul.
That makes more
Right,
sense.
so you wouldn't trip over it. And the Lord is the upholder of my soul. So it's just a little suggestion to kind of help you pronounce the text properly.
Okay.
But
This is
the dot-
this is an important syllable here.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
All right, cool. So I can send this to you guys. Also, this fantastic document called Choir Wannabes, Choir Boy Wannabes that one of our professors gave to us. And this has these great little tricks for remembering the psalm tones. So we did Numbers 1 and 2, right?
first seek ye the kingdom of God, and all these things will be added unto you.
And then,
And the second commandment is like the first, love thy neighbor as thyself. Since all these things were done, the fourth watch he came to them, walking upon the sea. The 5 wise virgins who were ready went into the wedding feast. The 6th hour he was weary, and he sat down by Jacob's well. Seven spirits stand before the throne of God, which are the 7 spirits of God. 8 beatitudes he taught them in the Sermon on the Mount. When Israel came out of Egypt, the house of Jacob from a strange land, Judah was made his sanctuary, and Israel his kingdom.
all right, cool. So yeah, that's just a great little guide to have to help you memorize which psalm tone is which, with all the correct formulas and the mnemonic device with the numbers. What's up?
I said bases should avoid 7.
Yeah, but I mean, you can. The idea also is that you move the you move the psalm tone where it's comfortable to sing.
Yeah, he should have written these in do club.
What's that?
He should have written these in do club.
Yeah. Alrighty. So, now that we've done that, I'm gonna show something completely different now. Another way that we could pray the Psalms that's much simpler. And this is from a thing that I wrote called Vespers for the Feast of the Transfiguration. And the idea was to create a participatory Vespers service that would be accessible to any congregation, but the Psalms are still chanted. They're chanted over a chord progression, but a very simple formula where we have a single tenor. We know what tenor means now. That's our chanted tone, and then the ending is not dependent on accent. It's just the second last syllable of every line. Okay. So I want to try singing along with this. I'm going to play the recording quietly underneath, so that because I don't have a piano to do it with you guys, but I want to have you guys try singing along just so that we can see another way of singing psalms as part of liturgy. Give me 1 second. Alrighty. So here we are. Can you guys see that or no? Too small?
If you maximize Chrome, you might be able to.
And then let's
And then
do
do
this.
control.
Alright, how's that?
It's better.
Okay. And I'll scroll with you. Yeah, I guess it's still pretty small, but
If you do a control scroll, it'll lighten up a little bit.
control.
And control and then scroll your wheel. The other way. Again.
Okay, great. How's that? Better?
Yeah.
Alright. Alright, so the idea here is the same. Again, this is for Vespers, so it's a little bit different than we have for singing the antiphons and psalms at Mass. But thinking back to what we talked about with Vespers, antiphon comes first, and then we sing all of the psalm verses, and we sing the antiphon again at the end. Okay? In this particular case, here's what our psalm verses look like. Okay? Praise now, O servants of the Lord. Praise the name of the Lord. Very simple, okay? The only thing that's different about this is every time we have a paragraph, we're in F major here, we're going to go up one chord tone in F major. So praise, O servants of the Lord. With the second paragraph, we're going to say, praise be the name of the Lord. Third paragraph, we're going to go up to the A. From the dust he lifts up the lowly, lifts up. That's an error right there, sorry. Oops. Sorry. The lowly. And then the last one, we go up to the high C, okay? Da, 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 da. Okay, let's give it a shot. Oh.
When he took the 3 disciples to the mountain top to pray, his countenance
Okay, and here's the psalm.
Praise, O servants of the Lord. Praise the name of the Lord. May the name of the Lord be blessed, both now and forevermore. From the rising of the sun to its setting, praise ye the name of the Lord. High above all nations is the Lord. Above the heavens His glory. Who is like the Lord our God? Who dwells on high? Who lowers himself to look down upon heaven and earth? From the dusty lips of the lowly, from the ash heap He raises the poor, to set them in the company of princes, yes, with the princes of His people. To the childless wife He gives a home, as a joyful mother of children. Glory to the Father and to the Son and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now and will be forever.
So now we'll go back and sing the antiphon a second time.
He took the three disciples to the mountain top to pray. His countenance was magnified, His clothing was a flame. To them appeared Moses and Elijah came near and sign. The prophecy, the legislation spoke of whenever He would die.
All right, awesome, guys. So yes, another way that we can sing psalms and antiphons. I think that would be, it's a really easy way for congregations to participate in this ancient practice, I think, much like the simple English propers. So I would like to maybe open up for questions, short discussion here. I've sort of covered everything I want to cover, so if there's anything that you guys...
Is that file available for our use to, or is that only
yeah, I can share the sheet music with you if you'd like it.
the MP3 also?
Yeah, the MP3, you can buy it online.
Oh, okay. So
But I'd happily give you a copy if you'd like it. Yeah. Anything else that we haven't covered that you want to talk about outside of the realm of gripe?
Are most of the psalms now supposed to be verbatim that we use? I mean, if we, for example, OCP is coming out Spirit and Song, in addition to Respond and Acclaim and the Living Church and some other, is that what's, I guess, I'm not sure where I was going with that, but are the psalm responses, if, for example, if they're written, supposed to be verbatim if you decided to write something?
The actual psalm verses themselves?
Yes,
I think for the responsorial psalm, yes.
okay.
It must be
Okay.
the verbatim psalm verses. And
Okay.
there's two approved translations. There's the Grail Psalter and the the NAB, the New American Bible.
Okay.
Question on that, I have a copy of the New Grail ones, but it doesn't come with, well, I mean, it's the full psalm version.
Right.
For everything, but not just ABC liturgically. Where would you glean the antiphons if you're just given the psalm itself?
The antiphons for
all of the psalms, like if you're doing the Liturgy of the Hours, you have an antiphon, you have
Yeah.
the psalm, for lack of a better word, verses, and then you have the antiphon again. For the Liturgy of the Hours, are there approved antiphons?
well, yeah. So there's a set of 4 books called Christian Prayer,
Okay.
and that has everything in it. It has the antiphons. It has the psalm verses.
For all 151 psalms? Or-
Yeah, and for every context also.
Okay.
So for the regular Psalms of the week, as well as all feast days. It's an expensive set of books, but yeah, it exists.
Okay.
Yeah.
Isn't there a new one coming out, though? Aren't the bishops working on the?
A new translation of the
Yes.
Christian Prayer. Yeah, I think that's true. I don't know when it's supposed to come out. Do you know?
They
About
keep
3
saying
years.
they're pushing it back. I've heard anywhere from 3 to 5 years.
22 is the current projection, I think.
2022.
So in the meantime, is basically anything goes?
Well, no, the current version of Christian Prayer that we have is the version.
Well, yeah, it's just, there's so many, like,
The
it's
current book for the Liturgy of the Hours is Christian Prayer. There's a 1-volume set that has morning, evening prayer, and night prayer. And then there's the 4-volume set that has all of the offices that, ordained religious.
Do you know if there's an
So
electronic version of that available?
There's an app if you want to.
There's an app for that.
Yeah,
There's
there's
a
an
website
app.
for that.
I
There is?
agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple good websites. Yeah.
So we looked at the chant tones traditionally and your version of it as well. Is there any relationship between the Catholic Church's historic chant tones and the ancient Hebrew that, say, at the time of King David, how would they have chanted the psalms back then?
I mean, I don't think we know that at all, really. There's no notated music, really. The earliest notated music I think we have is from the 7th or 8th century. So yeah, we don't know. We do have oral tradition of some, like Byzantine chants, for example, that we think could be approximately close to the practice in those particular regions that may have gone back further, but in terms of concrete knowledge, I can't say that we do. I mean, I'm open to being corrected on that too, but that's the best I know.
I mean, sometimes when there's not actual notation of something, there are, just like this are treatises that describe what was going on through somebody's mind when they're rendering it.
Yeah.
It's not notation.
Yeah, that's the best I got.
I just kind of wanted to throw this out there. My parish has been using the antiphons that Adam wrote. We've actually, what I was started to do is kind of weird. We had the cantor or the choir sing the antiphon, just the antiphon, before the entrance hymn, just as an introduction to, look, there's something else that we can sing during this time than a hymn. And, we've been doing it for quite a while now, about 9 months, and it's been well received, and the cantors pick up really easily on the notation. And I feel like it's a good, I did not get paid to say this, but like, I feel like it's a good compromise between the little circular note heads and the true pneumatic notation. But we've had success with those, and even a couple cantors have tried the psalm verses, and that's been fun too. So, thank you.
Yeah, and I, just as a last final point, I guess if nobody has any questions, that what I hoped we could sort of establish with this smorgasbord on psalmody was that there's a lot of different ways to do it. It's obviously an incredibly rich tradition, and within the tradition of the church, there's an extremely well-developed methodology for how to chant the Psalms. And so by going through just the 2 psalm tones that we did and looking through the way they were presented there in the Liber Usualis, I hope that sort of gave a little bit of a taste. In my own life, in my own sort of liturgical life, these 3 things that I showed you have all been really important ways that I've been able to pray the Psalms. I took a class on liturgical prayer at one point and Gregorian chant, and we learned the psalm tones. We did morning prayer every morning with a group of us, sort of outside the class, but it sort of took it outside of the being able to do it every morning in a community of people who were your friends, maybe, for me at least, took it outside of any sort of like worship war debate, because it was like we weren't doing it to be traditional or to try to recover something, any of these sort of buzzwords around the war. We were doing it because we really wanted to learn and let that sort of form our identity as contemporary church musicians. And we wanted to be exposed to the tradition and really what it has to offer and the way that it can inform our contemporary practice. So that was a fantastic experience. The music's incredible. I mean, it's really hard to look at it and just sing it, but when you do it day after day, if you even for a month or something, it really starts to get into your bones, and it's a fantastic experience. I'll say for the Simple English Propers, I worked at a parish here on campus, and there was probably about a year-long period where we did the Simple English Propers, not every week. We probably did one antiphon psalm combination every 2 weeks. And by the end, for us, it was extremely comfortable to sing, especially for the volunteer cantors, because there's a logic to each formula. It's just like the formulae that we studied, in a sense. Like even for the antiphon, there's a way that each mode functions, right? And so once you sing a particular mode, you kind of know which ways the melody is going to twist and turn, and so that gives you a little head start. And that was a nice thing to do in liturgy. It was so different than what we had ever done. I mean, when I came into that job, it was a guitar player who was the music director, and the oldest piece of music that they did was from 1970, and that was for a long time. I mean, I'm not making a value judgment there. That's totally fine, but it was nice to be able to at least have some sort of representation from a broad array of the tradition of sacred music. And then, of course, this thing that we just did, this Vespers, for that I was looking for basically the simplest possible way to get a jazz piano trio and congregation to sing together. And that's what you heard. It was that psalm tones are extremely simple, as you saw. It's almost impossible to mess them up, but really easy for a congregation to sing and participate in a Vesper service. So I hope this sort of gave some avenues to explore. It's certainly not all-encompassing, but just meant to be an overview and give you some options for further curiosity if you're interested. So, and of course, I have a website and stuff, but if you feel free to get in touch with me with any questions about any of the stuff we talked about or anything really, I'd be glad to hear from you, and I appreciate you guys giving me the time to present today.